So if you're a construction business owner or, really anyone deeply invested in the future of the built environment, I want you to just picture your profit and loss statement for a second.
Always a stressful exercise.
Right, yeah. I mean, we always tend to think of construction as this booming, physically unstoppable force. We look around, we see cranes in the sky, concrete pouring, trucks rolling.
It feels very tangible, very permanent.
Exactly. But there is a startling reality check circulating right now. 60% of contractors expect their profit margins to tighten next year. 60%.
Wow.
Yeah. That is a massive portion of the industry just, bracing for impact.
It's a sobering statistic, without a doubt, and it really paints a picture of an industry at a major inflection point. I mean, the strategies that built a construction business to this point.
The things that worked brilliantly even just last year.
Exactly. They simply will not guarantee success in 2026. The coming year is going to brutally punish complacency, because when margins compress, you lose your room for error.
Yeah, you really do.
Survival and growth in this landscape aren't about weathering the storm anymore. They are entirely about proactive adaptation.
I couldn't agree more. We're not just talking about surviving a temporary squeeze or, barely keeping the lights on. The goal of this deep dive is to figure out how to build a resilient, scalable, and highly profitable enterprise regardless of the economic weather.
That's the mindset you need.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the most immediate line of defense, which is fiercely protecting the profitability of the work you actually take on.
That is the foundational piece right there.
Yeah.
Because if margins are tightening across the board, the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of owners is to just go win more bids.
Right, just increase the volume to make up for the lower margin.
Yeah, but that is often a death spiral. Your immediate priority has to be defending your margins, and that starts with choosing your battles. It means walking away from the broad, generalist approach and intentionally dominating just 2 or 3 high-margin niches.
Okay, I talked to a lot of contractors, and I have to push back on this right out of the gate.
Go for it.
Because it sounds absolutely terrifying for a general contractor to essentially put away the Swiss Army knife and just use a scalpel. Like, if you're already worried about cash flow, isn't it incredibly risky to start saying no to perfectly good general commercial jobs?
I get that.
It just feels like business suicide to turn down revenue when the market is tightening.
It feels counterintuitive, I'll grant you that. But it is actually the ultimate risk mitigation. When you're the Swiss Army knife, you are competing on price against, every other hungry generalist in town.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You enter a race to the bottom, which is exactly how those margins get crushed in the first place. But when you are the scalpel, you offer specialized expertise. And specialization drives up the premium you can charge. Clients don't just pay for a building, they pay for certainty. A specialist guarantees certainty.
Okay, I see the logic there. You're stepping out of the commodity pricing war. But how does that actually translate to the bottom line?
Well, what's fascinating here is the mechanics of why that specialization works so powerfully. Let's say you decide to focus heavily on high-end medical facility renovations.
Okay.
Or cold storage warehousing. When you do that, you stop reinventing the wheel on every single project. Your estimating team becomes razor sharp because they aren't guessing.
Right, they know the exact historical costs of lead-lined drywall or specialized ammonia piping.
Exactly. And your labor force becomes highly efficient because they aren't context switching between a retail fit-out one month and an office lobby the next. You eliminate the immense waste that inherently comes with being a generalist.
And there is real weight behind that. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report notes that contractors specializing in specific high-demand sectors are seeing significantly better returns. We're talking about boosting project profitability by 15 to 20% just by narrowing your focus.
That's a massive swing.
It really is.
And once you've protected the margin on the bid, you have to protect the war chest itself. The days of static, set it and forget it spreadsheets are entirely over. You have to implement dynamic budgeting.
Right.
Right now, that means increasing material cost fluctuation buffers to 10 or even 15%.
Wait, a 15% buffer? Most owners would say that's going to make their bids totally uncompetitive.
If you are a generalist, yes. But if you are a specialist providing certainty, clients will accept the realistic pricing. It isn't pessimism, it's realism.
Got it.
But honestly, even more critical than the buffer is the actual velocity of your money. You can optimize cash flow by 30% simply through radically improved invoicing and payment terms.
A 30% optimization in cash flow is wild, but how do you actually extract that? Construction billing is notoriously convoluted.
It comes down to eliminating the disconnect between the dirt and the desk. Think about the physical reality of a job site. If a superintendent delays submitting a daily log because they're busy putting out fires,
Which happens constantly.
Then the office delays generating the pay application. So the client delays the payment because the paperwork was late. Suddenly, the contractor is floating a massive payroll on a credit line with 8 or 9% interest.
Ouch.
Yeah. Tightening up those invoicing terms, mandating daily digital field reporting, and automating the payment pipeline is how you defend the cash you've actually earned. You stop paying the bank to float your own money.
Which is the perfect bridge to our next major focus, because once you've carved out these highly profitable niches and you've protected your cash flow, that money just sits there unless you can actually execute the builds.
Right.
And right now, legacy administrative overhead is just eating contractors alive. Trying to manage modern multi-million-dollar construction projects with legacy administration is like digging a foundation with a teaspoon. It is agonizing to watch.
That's exactly what it's like. You can win the perfect job with a great margin, but if the paperwork buries your project managers, those margins evaporate before you even pour the foundation.
Yeah.
This is where advanced technology integration transitions from a novelty into a non-negotiable survival tool.
And the competitive advantage here is stark. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report notes that early tech adopters gain a significant competitive edge. We are looking at AI-powered bidding tools, improving win rates by 10%.
That's huge.
And modern project management software reducing administrative overhead by up to 25%. The ultimate goal is automating 40% of repetitive tasks.
That 40% metric is the holy grail. When you automate those repetitive tasks, you achieve two things simultaneously. First, you free up your highly skilled labor to focus on complex problem solving rather than data entry.
Right.
Second, you reduce project delays by 25%, simply because critical information isn't sitting in a bottleneck on someone's desk waiting for a signature.
Let's talk about the specific mechanics of these tools, like smart document organization. This isn't just a shared cloud drive anymore.
Not at all. A shared drive still requires a human to name the file correctly and put it in the right folder.
Which nobody ever does.
Exactly. Smart document organization instantly tags, reads, and sorts photos, blueprints, and RFIs the moment they are uploaded. Nobody is digging through nested folders trying to find the structural drawings from 3 revisions ago. The system just knows what the document is, what trade it applies to, and who needs to see it.
And then there's document intelligence, which takes it a step further.
Right. Document intelligence is where the AI actually reads and cross-references the project files. It extracts the specifications from a 500-page manual and compares them against the architectural drawings.
Wow.
So if the spec calls for a specific fire-rated door, but the framing plan shows a rough opening that's 2 inches too small, the AI catches that mismatch before the framers even arrive on site.
That is incredible. It catches missing items before they become costly, schedule-killing mistakes in the field.
Exactly. And the systems are even generating draft RFI responses, requests for information, using historical context.
Okay, but I have to stop you here. Because construction has traditionally been a boots-on-the-ground, dirt and hammers industry, it's highly tactile.
True.
How do you overcome the inevitable team pushback against letting an AI draft an RFI or summarize a daily log? I can just picture a veteran superintendent, 30 years in the dirt, crossing his arms and refusing to let an iPad do his job.
It's a completely valid concern. And honestly, it happens on almost every tech rollout. But that pushback usually melts away when the field team realizes the actual mechanism of the technology.
How so?
It isn't there to replace their expertise. It's there to get them out of the job trailer and back out onto the site where they belong. You overcome the skepticism by framing it entirely around their pain points.
Make it about them.
Right. Think about your veteran superintendent. He does not enjoy sitting in a hot trailer at 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, typing up daily logs, or hunting through emails for a missing submittal.
No, of course not.
So when an issue arises, say, a conflict with the HVAC routing, the AI searches the last 5 years of your company's project data. It finds a similar routing conflict and drafts an RFI based on how that exact superintendent successfully solved it a few years ago.
That's amazing.
You show him that you aren't giving him a new software chore. You're giving him his Friday evening back.
You're upgrading them from overpaid data entry clerks back to being master builders.
Precisely. And that execution engine is the only way a business can truly scale. You can handle twice the volume of complex projects without having to double your administrative headcount.
Okay, so we've got the internal house in order. But all this internal efficiency, all the AI and the faster admin process, it's completely useless if the physical steel and concrete never arrive on the job site.
Oh yeah, that'll stop a project cold.
We have to pivot from internal efficiency to external risk management, the things you can't control.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the reality of 2026 is that global and local supply chains are going to remain highly volatile. The era of relying on a single vendor for your critical path materials just because you like the sales guy, that era is over.
You have to secure multiple suppliers to intentionally diversify that supply chain, because the goal is to reduce project delays caused by material shortages by 35%.
Exactly.
That's a massive reduction in days where your crew is just standing around sweeping floors because the drywall didn't show up.
Diversifying your supply chain is essentially buying insurance for your project timeline. Yep. But managing multiple suppliers, tracking constantly fluctuating lead times, and predicting bottlenecks across a dozen different trades, that requires serious visibility.
Yeah, you can't manage that level of complexity by gut feeling or by calling your rep every morning.
Which is exactly where data analytics step in. Using project data effectively can increase overall project success rates by 12%.
But how do you know what parts of the business to point this data at?
Well, leveraging Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence report can help pinpoint exactly where a business will get the biggest ROI from automation. It shows you where your specific blind spots are.
Because not all data is created equal.
Right. A dashboard showing you how much money you spent yesterday is pretty useless. You need systems that perform specific, predictive analytical functions. Takes schedule risk detection, for instance.
Okay.
It doesn't just track what happened. It scans daily project activity to find bottlenecks before they explode into major delays.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the way you're describing this, it's like having a financial weather radar.
I like that.
In the old days, you'd look out the window after the storm hits, see the flooded site, and say, oh, look, we're over budget. But with these budget and variance insights, you see the storm forming 50 miles out. You see the cost movements early enough to actually pivot.
That is a perfect analogy. The radar lets you board up the windows before the hurricane hits. And it applies incredibly well to change order impact analysis.
Walk me through how that actually works on a site.
Sure. Under the old model, if a client walks the site and requests a change, say swapping standard flooring for custom terrazzo, the contractor prices the new material and the extra labor, adds a markup, and sends the change order.
Pretty standard.
But what they miss is the hidden impact. Using modern analytics, you input that change, and the system instantly simulates how it ripples through the entire project schedule.
Oh, wow.
It calculates that the terrazzo needs more curing time, which pushes the painters back 3 days, which means the painters will now conflict with the millwork delivery, requiring you to rent off-site storage for the cabinets.
That is wild.
The analytics give you the true, holistic cost of the change order. That prevents the slow bleed of margins that contractors suffer when they underestimate the domino effect of a client's request.
That is profound. It completely changes the conversation with the client from a guess to an absolute certainty. So we've fixed the numbers with niche dominance, we've automated the software to free up the builders, we've fortified the supply chain and turned on the data radar to see the storms coming.
Yep.
But that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. And honestly, it might be the most crucial element because it is the engine that powers absolutely everything else we've talked about, the human element.
This raises an important question. You can have the most advanced AI drafting your RFIs, you can have the most rigorous budget buffering in the world, and you can have a perfectly diversified supply chain. But if you are constantly bleeding your best talent, your business will fail. Full stop.
Yeah.
Turnover in construction is incredibly expensive, not just in recruiting costs, but in the loss of critical tribal knowledge.
The targets for this are aggressive. We need to focus on reducing employee turnover by 20%. How? Through targeted training and deliberate succession planning. And here is the metric that made me stop in my tracks. Investing 5% of your total payroll in continuous professional development.
That 5% is a very specific strategic number. When you invest at that level, you fundamentally shift your workforce from a depreciating asset to an appreciating asset.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge this.
Let's hear it.
We started this entire conversation by stating that 60% of contractors are terrified of tightening margins next year. When cash gets tight, when a CFO is looking at a tightening T&L, isn't taking 5% of payroll for training the absolute first thing a nervous owner is going to cut?
It usually is.
I mean, training and marketing budgets usually get slashed before lunch. Why is cutting that a fatal mistake?
It is a fatal mistake because cutting training is a short-term illusion of savings that creates a massive, devastating long-term liability. When you cut professional development, you aren't just saving cash, you're sending a signal.
What kind of signal?
Your top performers, the superintendents and project managers who actually drive your high-margin work and know how to use the complex tech we just discussed, they realize there is no future for them at your company.
They see the writing on the wall.
Exactly. So they leave. And who do they leave for? They leave for a competitor who is investing in them. Now, you've lost your revenue driver, and you are going to spend 10 times that saved training budget on recruiting a replacement, onboarding them, and paying for the inevitable mistakes that a less experienced replacement is going to make on the job site.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
You shift your team right back to a depreciating asset.
It's the ultimate penny-wise, pound-foolish scenario. You literally cannot afford not to spend that 5%.
Precisely. And beyond just retaining your current talent, this investment feeds directly into your external brand. Building a strong company culture and a reputation for developing your people doesn't just keep your staff happy. It boosts qualified inbound leads by 20%.
Because clients talk.
They absolutely talk. Sophisticated clients, the ones paying the premiums for the high-margin niche work we discussed at the top of the show, they don't want to work with a contractor who has a revolving door of stressed-out, overworked project managers.
Yeah.
They want to work with companies that have stable, highly trained professional teams. The culture is the marketing.
It really is all connected. If you have a phenomenal internal culture, you retain your smartest builders. If you have your smartest builders running the tech, you deliver flawless projects without schedule overruns.
Exactly.
And that flawless delivery drives the final metric we need to hit today, enhancing client communication and post-project feedback to boost client retention by 15 to 20%.
Turning a one-time project into a repeat client is the ultimate growth hack in construction. Winning a brand new client requires massive overhead, estimating, pitching, relationship building.
It's exhausting.
Keeping an existing client is pure margin. And you keep them by utilizing all the tech and talent we just talked about to provide radically transparent communication, hitting your schedules predictably, and delivering an exceptional stress-free experience from the first bid to the final handover of the keys.
So what does this all mean? We have covered an immense amount of ground today, pulling apart the actual mechanics of how a construction business can fortify itself for 2026.
If we synthesize everything we've explored, the roadmap for the next few years becomes very clear. You don't scale by just working harder. You defend your margins by specializing in niches where you can command a premium.
Right.
You build a flawless execution engine by integrating technology that automates the administrative burden.
Yeah.
You mitigate external chaos by diversifying your supply chain and using predictive data to see around corners. And you anchor that entire system by fiercely protecting and developing your human capital.
It's a completely holistic ecosystem.
Yes, you cannot just upgrade your software and ignore your people or fix your supply chain, but bid on low-margin generalist work. They all interlocked to create a truly resilient enterprise.
It really is a total paradigm shift from the old win the bid and figure it out in the dirt mentality.
It is a totally different industry now, and I will leave you with a final thought to mull over, extending beyond just the immediate 2026 landscape we've discussed today. Imagine we fast forward to the end of the decade.
Okay, I'm imagining it.
If AI and automation platforms are eventually handling all the heavy lifting, if the software does the compliance checks, the schedule tracking, the complex document sorting, and the granular data analysis, the ultimate role of the human contractor is going to shift entirely.
Paint that picture for me. What does that owner look like?
The future construction owner will not be a manager of tasks, spreadsheets, and paperwork. Those things will essentially run autonomously. The owners of the future, the ones who truly scale and dominate their markets, will be purely managers of human relationships, of grand architectural vision, and of high-level craftsmanship.
Wow.
The technology is not going to remove the human element from construction. It is going to strip away the suffocating administration so that the human element is the only thing left that differentiates you in the market. That is the true future of scaling.
What an incredibly powerful perspective to close on. We started this deep dive by looking at a terrifying statistic about shrinking profit margins. But really, this entire conversation is about clearing away the noise and the friction so you can get back to the art of building and leading.
Exactly right.
If you know a contractor who is staring down tightening margins and trying to future-proof their operations for 2026, send them this episode. It could completely change their approach to scaling. Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. And for more on the tools we discussed today, visit smartbusinessautomator.com.